So what's going on here with AIS? I mean, there's all this talk going on. Well, thanks to you, over 90% of the lakes are free and clear of AIS in Minnesota. So keep up the good work, Minnesota. Just this last summer, I went fishing with a buddy of mine, and he already knew about clean, drain, and dry. We didn't have to explain anything to him. So it's people like that that gives me hope for the future. Yes, there's a lot of talk about government overreach and who should have control and who should do what. But you know, Minnesota Traditions, we're just offering you education here. There's opportunities to protect your lakes. We feel that this is just common sense stuff, and you should just want to do it because it just makes sense. Hey, I'm Tim Terrell, the Executive Director of the Mississippi Headwaters Board. You probably know me seeing on various Minnesota Traditions videos throughout the years, talking about AIS prevention along with all my good friends. Well, this year, we're going to offer some additional content. Not only are we going to talk about aquatic invasive species, but we're also going to talk about some great recreational opportunities up here. Because just because a lake or stream or river has aquatic invasive species doesn't necessarily mean you got to stop what you're doing. Let's get out there, let's enjoy some of these Minnesota traditions, and I hope you enjoy the opportunities that are available to you in Minnesota. Back in about the 2015-2016 era, the legislature actually appropriated money to the counties to help fight aquatic invasive species. Nobody knew really what that meant, and the role of the Mississippi Headwaters Board, we weren't sure how we were getting involved in that. So we thought as a regional organization, we should be on top of some of this aquatic invasive species because it is something that affects not just the Mississippi, but actually the entire nation. So the board got together, they thought about some things, and they said, you know, our role would be a regional educational campaign. And we started talking to counties, asking for funding, and really trying to get consistent messaging out there at a time when there really wasn't consistent messaging, and nobody, quite frankly, even knew what the messaging was. We worked with marketing companies, and we found out that our goal here is just to talk to people, get the message out, but present it in a positive way, because a lot of times you hear a lot of negative around this stuff. But actually, there's a lot going on that's very positive, and it's happening at the local level. Still being very factual that there's issues, but knowing that we're really making a difference. And so Minnesota Traditions started in like 2015, 2016. It's now almost 10 years later, and you know, we're still going strong. And it's not anything that we're doing, it's the stuff that you're doing that's making this popular. Well, I grew up in Kansas City, Kansas, and it was known as the City of Fountains. And I really didn't know that, but there were fountains, big water fountains in the streets. We even went shopping in the malls, and there's 30-foot tall water fountains there just cascading down and just adding beauty to the area. So I thought every city was like this. When I moved to Minnesota, I learned that things were a little bit different. It was a unique city. Well, here in Minnesota, we have some unique things going on too. We are very specialized here, and we do something that no other state does. We have a lot of inspectors. We've put a lot of money towards protection of our natural resources, much more than other states have done. And that's something we can all be proud of, and it helps us enjoy what we do, and we care about our natural resources. When we talk about aquatic invasive species, it just becomes this big nebulous thing that we're not quite sure what it is. Maybe we know what a zebra mussel is. We don't always have the big picture. There's a lot of things that we can't really connect with, but we do connect with our family vacations. We do connect with other people, and we're just trying to blend that with recreation and aquatic invasives, that it's actually an impact on you, and that it can be a positive role that you take and not just look at it from a negative perspective. When I was in high school, my senior year, I took up wrestling for the first time ever. Well, I kind of enjoyed it, so then I went to college and I took up wrestling as a sport. Big mistake on my part, but that's another story. My coach there, he actually was a pretty, not famous, but well-known wrestler. He actually went to the Olympics, placed like 8th in the world, so he was really knowledgeable about all this stuff. And so we started talking to him, and he started explaining to me some things, and he said, you know, I can teach you all these moves and all these escapes and all these different ways to take down people. He goes, but you know, the thing that wins gold medals are single leg and double leg takedowns. They're the first basic moves that you do when you enter into any wrestling program. So the same thing is true with AIS. They're just some basic moves like clean, drain, dry, decontaminating your boat. Some of these basic things will stop more than 95% of the problems that we have here in Minnesota. Just because there might be zebra mussels or starry stonewort in your favorite waters of the place you're vacation doesn't mean you necessarily have to stop doing your favorite activities. Go to the website below and see the recreational opportunities that are available to you. The Mississippi Headwaters Board meets monthly, and we have one mission: to protect the Mississippi River. We started in 1980 as an alternative to federal control over the Mississippi River, and local county commissioners, with their wisdom, they're able to look at planning and zoning and look at it and help protect the river from water quality, and also help protect the habitat that exists in this great area here. Minnesota Traditions isn't here just to educate you about zebra mussels and starry stonewort. We kind of want you to embrace these concepts and teach it to your children so that they can enjoy the same resource that you enjoyed as well. Resourcetainment is a term I created where we go and we paddle down the river, we have some fun, and then we end up having a social hour afterwards. Go to the website below and check out what events are available to you.
Well, with the clean water and aquatics and stuff, it was really important not only to myself, but a lot of people in Hubbard County. We get a lot of contributions from townships, lake associations, and the Hubbard County Coalition of Lake Associations, because a lot of people feel that it's important to have the clean water and the whole environment. I'm Ted Van Kempen, Hubbard County Commissioner. My favorite Minnesota tradition would be the opening weekend of deer season. I have some friends and family come up every year. It's like almost a 4-year tradition now. Everybody started in Minnesota, but one of my friends is from Oregon, another one from Wisconsin, a couple from the Twin Cities. You know, so it's the best time of the year. Started off in Aberdeen, South Dakota. Went through most of my grade school and that in Bloomington, Minnesota. Moved up here 1979 to Hubbard County. That was just going to be for a couple, 3 years. That was back in 1979, and I'm still there. Great place to live and raise a family. Well, the reason why I came to Hubbard County was I was working in Minneapolis and met my wife, who lived across the street from where I worked. Her twin sister's husband had a body shop and needed help, and that was my profession, was a body man. So I moved up here, fell in love with the place, the outdoors. I like hunting and fishing, the change of the weather. I couldn't live in southern United States. I like it, the spring and fall, probably the best time of the year. And you've got to have something to do in the wintertime if you're going to live in northern Minnesota. You know, so I'm into ice fishing, snowmobiling, a little bit of snowshoeing and cross-country skiing when my kids were little, and ice skating and that, but it's just, I love the outdoors. If we don't maintain our resources, our natural resources, we'll become like the urban areas of the Twin Cities. We've got most of our wetlands are still intact from hundreds of years ago. So we're trying to maintain that. It gives it clean water. The forests also, of course, contribute to clean water. So it's important, and that's something that I fear that if we don't maintain this stuff, the natural environment will go away.
Back when I was first in lakes, 2010, we had infestations really just popping up all over. And since then, this county AIS program has come into place, and the DNR's AIS program, and it was just a tsunami of infestations, and we were afraid it was going to wash across the whole lake and every lake would be touched by it. Now it's just a ripple. Now you just hear about a few new infestations a year. That's not because all the lakes are infested. Most lakes have nothing in them. It's just that what people are doing out there to clean, drain, and dry, it's working. Really, what's gonna prevent AIS from spreading is that individual stewardship ethic that gets us all to that communal solution we want to see. Call ahead, check for a decontamination station, look on Minnesota DNR's decontamination website. We have some great people here in Cass County. I know someone who was planning a trip up north. They looked at what was up there, spiny water flea. They didn't want to bring it back. They scheduled the decontamination before they left on their trip. Stuff like that, really, it's what each individual does with their own stuff that gets us all to that communal solution. What we're doing is working. Keep it up. Maybe even double down on your efforts. 2 minutes is good. An extra 2 minutes is more than twice as good. So clean your boat, drain it out, dry it for 5 days or more, especially if you're coming out of an infested water body. We're managing some plant management programs. So if you have like starry stonewort at an access, we don't want it going anywhere else. You might have heard about starry stonewort showing up on Lake Superior last year. That came from one of our accesses here in Cass County. So one of the things we're doing is how do we manage that plant so it doesn't get a hitchhike anywhere else. I'm Steve, Cass County AIS Coordinator. I really got into this job because of how much I was blessed to use the lakes in Minnesota when I was young. The lakes my dad grew up with, sandy and clear. It's not what my kids see off the dock now. It's clear, there's plants solid all over, and it's just a different experience. And I want to preserve what I had as a youth for future generations as long as we can. I'm Steve Henry. I'm the AIS coordinator for Cass County. I grew up on the lakes. I was really blessed. Spent all the summer days jumping off the dock, riding the bike off the dock, catching fish under the dock. There's nothing I want more than to preserve that experience for my kids and future generations out there. I'm really concerned about AIS altering our lakes. Where I grew up now, the lakes are different than they were. My kids don't want to jump off that dock, and that really touches me. In Cass County, more than 90% of our lakes are AIS free right now. So it's a battle, we're not losing, and what we're doing is working. So everyone needs to put in the effort that they can, whether they're at the access, they're at their lake lot, they're talking to someone who's gonna come up and use the lakes, is to keep on the message, clean, drain, and dry, 5 days out of the water. My name's Steve Henry. I'm the AIS coordinator for Cass County. My favorite Minnesota tradition is canoeing down the river with the family. People power we have is working the networks, is who knows who. People really trust their friends or people that are in their group of what they like to do. So trying to reach out to people who are fishing guides to talk to the fishing guides, and people who are kayakers to talk to the kayakers. So my people power is just leveraging who I know, who I meet, and trying to get them to talk to the people they know and the people they meet. If the person I talk to shares it 10 times, I'm 100 times more effective, and that's really where my people power comes in. You know, if people spend 2 minutes on their boat, they're quite effective. If they spend twice that much, they're basically twice as effective, where they're eliminating almost all those opportunities for AIS to hitchhike on their equipment or in their equipment. So what we like to say is go over everything and then turn around and go back. And when you do, you're gonna catch those few things you missed that first time. So 2 to 5 minutes is really the sweet spot. We'd like to get at least 2 minutes out of you out there on the access, and we don't feel like that's a tremendous amount to ask. One I hear a lot of is that wildlife is out spreading AIS around. And one thing we see is that the pattern of AIS spreading doesn't match that. And there's a few reasons why that's probably true. Ducks aren't flying around in midsummer when zebra mussel villages are at their peak. We definitely aren't seeing the lakes that are really used by waterfowl migrating. They're not getting AIS. So you look at Christina Lake by where I grew up in Douglas County, world-renowned waterfowl lake. It doesn't have zebra mussels, even though lakes all around it do. Now, I have seen a turtle crossing the road with zebra mussels on it, going about 2 miles an hour between 2 infested lakes. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but we haven't seen it happening.
Our major resource comes from tourism. And so we have to have clear water, clean water, good fishing. We need to have forest, because when people come up here, they look at our area as being that up north look, which is all about your environment. And I describe our area, Crow Wing County, as the Central Park of Minnesota. Our lakeshore properties are selling like crazy. When you have such an attractive area, you're going to get that kind of volume of business, so to speak. So it's important that we maintain that. You'll see that in the other counties that are up here too. I'm always encouraged because I come from a blended family. So I have a stepdaughter and a stepson. Stepdaughter lives in California, and their 2 kids, they want to come back here to Minnesota to enjoy our waters and our environment. It's relaxing, it's calming. That's what they want. When they want to take a vacation, this is where they want to come. And that's the attitude that we want from everybody. What I would say to anybody who wants to come to our area, be respectful. Help us manage these resources that we have, that you came here to enjoy, that we enjoy because we live here. So let's all be respectful of what we do when we're in this area, whether it's winter fishing, ice fishing. Remember, this is the only area in the country where we can walk on water. So we are God's country, if you didn't realize that. But it's important that it isn't just a dumping ground. You can't come here and because you're on vacation, you can forget about all those efforts to make sure that it's a clean environment, that what you want to experience is what everybody else wants to experience. So we all have a role to play in maintaining that. My favorite tradition is kayaking. I'm a sea kayaker by training, and so I belong to a club out of Brainerd. We have probably 20-25 people that are involved in that. We utilize all these lakes. We enjoy being on the water, being out in the elements. One thing that I will note is we never let the elements determine the fun that we have and the experience that we have. So I grew up in Brainerd. I was introduced to the Mississippi River, which is Rice Lake. It's one of the backwashes, but Brainerd had a park called Lum Park there. It does currently have that. And I learned to swim in the Mississippi River, so I'm very connected to it. I fished in the Mississippi River. My brother and I, one of my brothers, we both experienced that. So the Mississippi River has been a big part of my life, but then the lakes, you know, we always biked out to Whipple Lake, which is in Baxter. We've been on Pelican Lake and Gull Lake. You're in a water sport area, so you better know how to swim, better know how to do it safely. So it's a great place to learn to enjoy the outdoors.
I've watched it grow from many resorts to just a few resorts now. I've watched it go from not dirty water to very clean water because of the invasive species in the lake. It's changed fishing around to the point where I don't do much fishing anymore. I used to do a lot, primarily recreate along the lake. On days like today especially, where there's very little wind and it's easy to get around the lake and see what's going on. I am Scott Bruns, a county commissioner in Cass County. I say the Leech Lake, probably my favorite tradition. I'm here to protect the wildlife and fish. Sometimes it's tough to do. And my main goal is that on the Mississippi Headwaters Board, that's a group of people that are here to protect the Mississippi River. And all tributaries that go into the Mississippi River are from the Leech Lake, Bemidji on down. It just needs to be protected.
There's 2,552 miles of the Mississippi, and we take care of the upper 400 miles. So, I mean, it's pretty important. What happens after that, I'm not exactly sure, but we do our best to keep it going here. It goes back to what it was originally formed for, which was to, in a nutshell, keep the federal government out of the corridor and local counties, the 8 counties, to be able to have control. My family is from Clearwater County. We've utilized the lakes and rivers for all our lives, especially the Mississippi Itasca Park. We're just happy to always have our family get-togethers be down there every year on the 4th of July. I want to protect our Minnesota traditions because our greatest fear is that if we don't, the control will be taken away from us. Local control is always a plus. It's always the best to have.
I love spending time on the water in Minnesota, and I want to make sure that we preserve that for the future so my kids and everybody else's future is protected and that they can enjoy it like we did and like I did growing up in this area. And I just hope that we can maintain that for the future generations. I like the ability to have the local control and not be governed by the federal government or the state government even. We are closest to it, just like I was on the town board before I got on the county board, and having the ability to make local decisions is critical. The 8 counties that are involved here, we are gonna have the best opportunity to make the right decisions for our area. I'm Craig Gosvig, Beltrami County Commissioner, and my favorite Minnesota tradition is hunting and fishing. I love the lakes, walleye fishing, and hunting with my boys and fishing with my boys. And it's a wonderful place to live and work. As a kid growing up in Beltrami County, I enjoyed my early days riding the 3-wheeler down to the river to fish trout in Clearwater River. or fishing walleyes with my uncle that had a bait shop in Bemidji. You know, all the walleye tournaments and everything in the Bemidji area. The lakes are so pristine, and it's really enjoyable to get out there and have it right in our back door. As being the first city on the Mississippi River, it's great to have us be able to protect the first 400 miles and make sure that it starts off really clean and pristine and beautiful for the rest of the 2,000 plus miles.
Morrison County hired a gentleman out of Brainerd area to come down with his goats and to clean up some of the buckthorn. Every day they come check the goats, but they've got a solar-fired electric fence, and they move the goats like every 2 weeks. They'll move them to a new section to clean up the buckthorn and the invasive brush that's growing. It's another way to clean the parks up, and the goats are happy. I did not get exposed to the Mississippi River so much early in age, other than the dam over in Little Falls. A couple of years ago, when the deer population was down quite a bit, my brother and our 2 sons decided that instead of going deer hunting for the year, we would jump in our canoes and go down the Mississippi River. We had a blast, and we actually landed in Beltrami Park. The boating traffic is heavy, especially if you get between the 2 dams, between Blanchard Dam and Little Falls. There's a lot of activity with boats because the water remains pretty steady, whether it's during a drought season like this year or a couple years ago. Hi, I'm Bobby Casper. I'm from Morrison County. Do I love water? Yes, we really enjoy the water. And every year near the 4th of July, the family will come up and we have a triathlon. We probably only race a half mile with canoe and kayaks, but then jump on the bikes, go 4 miles on the bikes, and then run 2 miles. No one's real trained up, so there's a lot of pain, but you can always jump in a lake and cool off when it's all said and done. And we have a lot of laughs. It's really fun. I see people just wanting to go down to the river, bring a picnic basket, and there's something about water, there's something mysterious about it, and the Mississippi's no different. To be able to just sit and with friends and family and just have a bite to eat and look over the river and just stare and let your imagination go a little bit. As part of being a county commissioner in Morrison County, this is one of the boards that have been selected for me to be on, and it is a pleasure to see what can we do to stir up interest in the Mississippi River. It is an incredible natural resource that we have flowing right through our area. To use our imagination, how can it be used more for recreation and to make people more aware of it? It's an incredible opportunity.
Do animals move aquatic invasive species? My short answer is yes, but they're gonna move it across the street. They're not gonna move it 150 miles. They're not gonna move spiny water flea from Lake of the Woods all the way down to Mille Lacs. How did spiny water flea get to Mille Lacs? It wasn't a bird, it was a person. And it's been scientifically studied that animals will move stuff around. And we've all seen the pictures of crayfish with zebra mussels on them and stuff. But how far do you think that crayfish is gonna go? If it even leaves the water. It's gonna go across the street. It's people moving around, we gotta stop it. My mom was living in Minnesota because she's from Minnesota. So I moved into the basement like all young 25-year-old people at that time period. I was only there for about 1.5 years before I went back to school at BSU. Got a Bachelor of Science in Biology with a naturalist emphasis. So I did a couple of internships at Lake Bemidji State Park, and I eventually got a job with the DNR working in an invasive species program. And that's where I really got into the invasive species and started teaching people about it, started training and stuff. So that's how I started. I may have grown up in Florida, but I moved up here, and my best tradition up here is meeting with the family over Christmas in the snowpack and enjoying the ice fishing and the family get-together that we have, and actually going out and playing in the snow a little bit because we have some young kids. I lived in Beltrami County for 23 years now, and my fear is that we are going to lose our lakes to invasive species. What I mean by that is, like, zebra mussels in Lake Bemidji have changed the whole ecology of Lake Bemidji, but the lake is still there. We can still use it. With starry stonewort, as it keeps growing and keeps spreading, you can't use that section of water body anymore. And if we get other invasive species like hydrilla, which is terrible, terrible, terrible plant, we lose access to that resource. And that's what I'm afraid of doing, is losing access to this great resource that you can't find anywhere else. It would be heartbreaking to have that happen. My first experience with aquatic invasive species, I didn't really realize that it was really invasive. I was probably 6 or 5 or something, and we were going up to a cabin up on a river in Florida, and that river had a rope swing on it. When we got there, I ran down to the river, getting ready to do the rope swing, and the whole thing was just covered with water hyacinth. Shore to shore, all the way up and all the way down as far as you could see. You couldn't even see the river anymore. So obviously we didn't go swimming there. I didn't get to use the rope swing. I was very upset. And I vaguely remember my dad telling me that it's a non-native plant or something. They didn't call it invasive. And people always ask me, well, they're everywhere and da-da-da, they're already here. And that, well, that's because they got here before we realized they were the problem. The reason I liked this and fell in love with it, for one, there's less people. I grew up in Florida and lived in Tampa for a while, and it was just packed with people. And I lived in Omaha, Nebraska, which I thought would be less people, but the city was just packed with people. So I realized that I didn't want to work in a city. I wanted to work in outstate areas, and this area is great up here. There's a lot more people now than there was when I started, but there's still, people come up here to enjoy it, but I live here, so I have a huge advantage over them. So it's very nice living up here. There's a lot of stuff to do out in the environment. One of the things that I really find amazing is that in spring, when everything is dormant, within a week, it's all flushed with green vegetation. Everything's grown 2 feet high, and it's an amazing effect that I don't think I will ever get over, because in Florida it's green all the time and stuff kind of grows. Some things grow really fast, but other things just keep growing all the time and you never notice it. People complain about the bunks, which I will agree. Bunks on boats suck. Because they pull in vegetation from a mile around that gets stuck on there. So you do have to do a little extra, get the end of a fishing rod and just wipe it down. But the stuff between the boat and the bunk, that boat's moving around as you're traveling, it's gonna rip anything apart as long as it's in between there. It's just the stuff on the edges that you have to worry about. Watercraft inspectors aren't there to catch people doing wrong things. They're there to help people stop the spread of aquatic invasive species. We've had multiple people this year come and find our inspectors to find out what they should do. I love it because it makes me aware of the people that are doing the right thing and makes me feel good. But it only takes one. One person comes in and complains and tells you not to look at their boat and I don't want to talk to you and da-da-da-da. And it's like, just one person, that's all you need. We have 222 water bodies in Beltrami County that are over 20 acres. A lot of those are not accessible by the public, so I can't really get into them. I have 49 water bodies that have trailer accesses and trailer parking spaces at them. And then there's another 10 to 12 that are only hand launches. I really only manage the 49. But I have had people in the past call me from a lake that doesn't have a public access, and I go out to their water body and I check their dock and lift area because they had some questions about vegetation. And I like getting those calls because it makes me feel like this person cares and worries and is practicing AIS prevention. We are notoriously not proactive. People don't prevent things, they react to things. When we first started this in 2008 in the AIS world, it was a foreign concept for people to remove things and pull the plug out of their watercraft. And they had to change, and it's like, well, I've been doing this for 50 years, I've never had to do that before. Well, that's true, you didn't, because we didn't know any better. And I didn't know any better. When I first started this, it was all new to me, and I had to learn it, and I had to make it a habit so that I did it all the time. Everyone just has to change the way they do it to the best management practices so we can prevent the spread versus reacting to the spread. The invasive species and anything in the environment takes time to change and morph into whatever it's going to change. People don't realize, they think these changes are immediate. I had like 4 phone calls from people on North Twin asking about this starry stonewort, and at least 2 of them thought it was going to be a major change like right away. And it's like, no, this is going to affect the lake, not now, and if I manage it correctly, it won't ever really affect the lake, but I'm spending money and time to manage it. But if we don't and it gets away, it's going to start affecting people in 10 to 15 years. A lot of the invasive species that we're dealing with now, zebra mussel, starry stonewort, spiny water flea, they're not really designed or evolved to be spread by wild animals. So it stays in a very localized area. We, as humans, have to prevent the spread that we are doing. Because if you look at the number of things that are spread by humans versus the number of things that are spread by animals, the humans are spreading a huge amount more than animals are. Zebra mussels would have never got to the North American continent, but we moved them here because we are moving faster and faster around the globe. I mean, we can go around the world in less than 24 hours now. And it's very hard to control something once it gets here and becomes an invasive species. And I'm not saying that all these plants and all these animals that get over here become invasive species. A very small percentage of them do. Now, if it didn't get here at all, we wouldn't have to do anything about it. It's very easy to prevent the spread of stuff because all you gotta do is pull it off your boat. And if you're going to go to another water body within 24 hours, just flush out your live well with water even helps. Hot water's better, but just regular tap water will do wonders because you're pushing out any vegetation or anything else in there. Invasive species changes the habitat of the lake. It's going to be very gradual and it's going to be over a long period of time. But are you teaching anyone your skills? Are you, have cousins, nephews, nieces, sons, daughters? They're gonna have to deal with the aftermath of what we put in. So you really want to prevent the spread of invasive species, and it's easy. Just remember to take things off and flush out your water containing compartments. That's all you have to do. And it's an easy thing to do, fast, quick, in and out. Kayaks. I always thought kayaks were not a problem. I started using my kayak more and more, and my kayak has a lip around the hole so the water never gets out of it, and I'm looking for AIS, so I'm pulling plants up. And I got mud, I got plants, I got all sorts of water that goes into my kayak, and I have no way to get it out. So I have to figure out how to do it. I got a little grabber, I got a sponge, I swish everything out, swish it all to the back, And that hole back there always gets clogged up with stuff, so I have to pull stuff out of there all the time, and then I throw hot water in there for 2 minutes, make sure I kill everything. So I had to change the way I did things, because if we just react to the spread, we've lost. Minnesota knows that we have public waters and public resources. They want to keep those public waters and public resources open for the public. But we as stewards and users need to use it properly. Make sure you're removing vegetation, make sure you're dumping all your water out, and take that extra step of flushing out your live wells and bilges if you're going to go to another water body within 5 days. Or look for a decon station, which is free. The watercraft decontamination stations are free, and you can get in that day and have them do it. I've only know of one case where they got rid of an invasive species in a water body, and it was in a quarry water, that filled up, and they turned it into a saltwater lake, and it killed off everything. And then eventually the water went out because it's not continuously just filling, and they just left it that way. They got rid of it. And I also know of another one where they got rid of hydrilla, so I guess I know of two. But it's a lake in Indiana. They nuked it with an herbicide because they're killing plants. And they took drastic measures. They shut that lake down. No one was allowed to enter or exit that lake, except for the residents. They were allowed to enter it, but they weren't allowed to come off until the end of the season. And then they nuked it. Looked at the report, and they put a lot of herbicide in there and just killed everything. If there was fish in there or anything else, any other invertebrates or anything else, they died. But it's a very drastic measure that they took in order to get rid of it. And we're not going to do that in a Minnesota lake. There's no way. And I wouldn't want that anyway. But, what do you do when you get an invasive species into a very nice water body? The only real way to manage an invasive species is to prevent it from spreading. We do have a plan for the starry stormwort. What we did is we set up a hand polling. I reviewed some of the hand polling sites where I went in and snorkeled around and looked at what they did, and the huge biomass is gone, but there is some more starry stormwort laying around. So what I wanted to do is go in there and algicide and kill off the starry stormwort that's just laying there. Now it's been proven already that the algicide is not going to touch the bulbils, which are the star-shaped bulbils, is how you identify starry stormwort. So the bulbils will re-sprout. And then what you need to do then is either treat it with another herbicide treatment, or you wait till they grow a little bit so you can see them and pick them out. The trouble is when you're hand pulling in an aquatic environment, you're pulling up sediment with everything, and it gets cloudy fast. So it's hard to get, it's impossible, I would just say, to get everything in one pull. So you have to go back a few times. Normally, what you see in infestation when it comes into the area, it comes into the area and goes into heavily used water bodies, because that's where everyone's going through. We found a couple of new infestations in Beltrami County that are in lakes that are very low risk to get starry stormwort, because there's not people going to those lakes that are from starry stormwort lake. And they're new infestations because they're so small. Like in the North Twin infestation, I swam over the exact spot that starry stormwort is in 2021, and I didn't see any starry stormwort. Now there might have been a few strands in there because I probably wasn't looking that close, but this year it was just solid starry stormwort, and it's depressing that it got into that lake, because North Twin, if you know anything about North Twin, is a very nice lake. It's a very good lake for fishing, good lake for recreating, and there's a bunch of campsites on the north end, so people like to go camping there too, because it's a very nice lake to enjoy. The best practice to manage invasive species is prevention, because if you get an invasive species into a water body, it's there and it's not going to go away. All we can do is just manage it so that it doesn't do an impact on the environment people recreating or economy, because invasive species, what the definition is, it damages the economy, the environment, and then human health. So our best practice is to prevent the spread of invasive species. I feel like I'm a steward for the environment and I need to take care of it. It's a habitat I like, it's a habitat I enjoy. I like swimming, I like snorkeling, so my job is a nice job. I get to go snorkeling for my living. But when I'm snorkeling around looking at all this wonderful vegetation and the animals and everything, and I come across a patch of starry stonewort, it's depressing. I read a report of 10 years of management on starry stonewort by Wisconsin, trying different algicides, hand pulling it, diver-assisted suction harvesting, and none of them worked. It actually spread throughout the lake within a 3 to 4 year period. I read that and it's like, oh man, it's gonna be rough, because what we're doing is we're hand pulling right now, and I wanted to follow up with an algicide treatment, but then I read that report and it's like, well, it's not doing anything, it's just causing it to spread and grow faster. And then I got a report that it's in another water body, and it's like, well, what's it doing there? So someone else found some in another water body in Beltrami County, and it's like, now I have 2 new infestations. What we know of starry stonewort is that it likes the mid-level 10 to 15 feet of water, all the way up to 4 feet, and then it will grow, and what we've seen in the past is that it will grow and grow and grow and take up the whole water column. So all you have is starry stonewort in that area. And you can't boat through it, can't swim through it, and it's just depressing to have.